Good morning. My name is Nancy Foreman. This Unitarian Universalist congregation is a place where we come to learn more about being human. We're not here because we figured out life's questions or because we think we've got it right. We come here to learn more about being in relationship together, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and how to create trust and compassion in one another. I have two announcements today. The first is the Defund Fear discussion, which is, I think it's in your order of service in a blue sheet. So you can discuss. This is the common read for the UUA, and it will be discussed on February 28th and March 7th. The second one is also on the other side of the blue sheet in your order of service. It's an Anti-Racism 101 on March 17th and 24th. Laura Wooten and Laura and Daniels will be presenting that, and you can register at the link there. Those are also in the newsletter, other places to register. This morning's worship participants are Horizon members who have been on a journey of discovery related to systems of oppression. Through reading, taking part in organizing groups, joining in actions focused on racial, environmental, immigration, and economic justice, and through self-reflection. We are different people in different places along this journey. This work and learning need to be placed into context just a bit. At the General Assembly in New Orleans in 2017, the Unitarian Universalist Association, UUA, Commission on Institutional Change was established and charged to conduct an audit of white privilege and the structure of power within Unitarian Universalism, and to analyze structural racism and white supremacy culture within the UUA. As the UUA does the regularly occurring work of revising the purposes and principles that member congregations covenant to affirm and promote, an eighth principle has been proposed. That is, journeying through spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse and multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and other institutions. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome among us. If you are hearing this for the first time or the 100th time, you are welcome here. Now let us move into worship, willing to be authentic with each other, within ourselves, and open to connection in all its forms.
Good morning. My name is Menica. It is said that ministers are here to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I say we are all afflicted and we are all comfortable. May our time together this morning be a comfort and a confrontation. May we here find peace in times of tumult. May we here invite tumult into lives of peace. May we here find calm in times of restlessness. May we here allow restlessness to evolve into action. Let this be the place you consider what you've never considered. Let this be the place you imagine for yourself something new and unthinkable. May this hour bring dreams of new ways of being in the world. Come, let us worship together.
Next, we move on to the chalice lighting. We light our chalice with the words of Melanie Davis, a spark of hope. In the snow, with only their upper body visible, a person holds a lit sparkler. If ever there were a time for a candle candle in the darkness, this would be it. Using a spark of hope, kindle the flame of love, ignite the light of peace, and feed the flame of justice. Please join in saying our affirmation found in the order of service and on the screen. There we go. Love is the doctrine of our church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in harmony with the earth. Thus do we covenant together. Now, please follow along or join in singing our opening hymn number 361 in the gray hymnal, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in.
Good morning. I'm Allison Ching. Our offering words today are by John Saxon. This religious community exists by its mission as a fire exists by burning, but a fire cannot burn without fuel. And it is the time, the energy, the imagination, the vision, the creativity, the compassion, the love, and the financial support of the members and friends of this community that fuels our mission to nurture and sustain a welcoming, inclusive, and diverse liberal religious community that transforms lives and serves the world. Your support, the free and generous support of each and every member and friend of this community, is what fuels this community and its mission. And without your support, the flame of justice, community, and love cannot burn brightly to warm ourselves and be a beacon in a world threatened by division and fear. The offering will now be gratefully given and received.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide. And so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
Good morning, I'm Bunny Summerlin. How is it with your soul? I invite you to pause. Take a deep breath. Feel the force of gravity pulling us all toward the same center. Whatever helps you feel more rooted and less alone. Now breathe in again, getting comfortable in your seat. Let us breathe silently together for a moment. Hear this. You are loved beyond belief. You are enough. You are precious. Your work and your life matter. And you are not alone. You are part of a we, a great cloud of witnesses, living and dead, who have insisted that this beautiful, broken world of ours is a blessing worthy of both deep gratitude and fierce protection. Our ancestors and our descendants are beckoning us, compelling us onward toward greater connection, greater compassion, greater commitment to one another and to the earth. Together, we are resilient and resourceful enough to say yes to that call, to make it our life's work in 1,000 different ways, knowing that we can do no other than bind ourselves more tightly together and throw ourselves into the holy work of showing up again and again to be part of building that world of which we dream, but which we have not yet seen. Love is the doctrine of this church, and it is with this principle that we walk with one another through our joys and sorrows. This morning we hold in our hearts all of those affected by the possibility of war. Beyond these, we have named aloud Let us honor those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken. As I light the candle, let us feel the ways we are connected to each other and to all beings, knowing that what affects one affects us all. Please follow along or join in singing our responsive hymn, number 132, in the gray hymnal, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Our first reading today is from Bronner Maria Rilke. It is from the book Letters to a Young Poet, which is a collection of his correspondence with a military cadet named Franz Xaver-Kappes, who was writing to learn about how to live an artistic life. This is Rilke's response. I would like to beg you, dear sir, as well as I can, to have patience with everything unresolved in your heart, and to try to love the questions themselves as if they were locked rooms or books written in a very foreign language. Don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now because you would not be able to live them, and the point is to live everything. Live the questions now. Perhaps then, someday far in the future, you will gradually, without even noticing it, live your way into the answer.
Good morning. I am Sarah Burrell Harrop, a member of Horizon. I also happen to be a member of the Leadership Collective of Allies for Racial Equity, which is a group of white folks doing our best to dismantle white supremacy culture within the UUA. And I'm really happy to be here. Now, Nancy mentioned General Assembly, or as we junkies call it, GA. General Assembly is an annual meeting of congregations where the business of the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, takes place. And my first GA was in 2005. And I was so excited. I was very concerned about racial justice in our society. I thought I would be with a bunch of UUs who were also concerned. And I had seen an advertisement about a group that was working on racial justice called DRUM, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries. So I was like, okay, exhibit hall open, and I ran to their booth. And very immediately, they said, oh, you need to join the White Caucus of DRUM. Now, Annette, yes, the White Caucus, I did not expect that. Annette was the person who spoke to me, and I don't remember the details. The one thing I remember was that she told me she was grappling with white supremacy culture in herself and in the UUA. And I, in that moment, felt revulsion. I was like, what? White supremacy culture? Klan? What is going on? It's horrible. But at the same time, I had this sinking feeling. It was in my gut, like, y'all check your guts, you know? It's important. And I had this question, but am I a part of that? I mean, she just said she's grappling with her part of that. And I was shutting down, you know? She was challenging my worldview. I had come and I thought I knew the answers and was ready to get activated, and she handed me a question. And this white woman was obviously a person that was trusted by Black, Indigenous, and people of color who were leading DRUM. And I really appreciate Rilke because his words describe what happened next. I decided I needed to love this question. What is white supremacy culture? What does she mean? And what's my part of it? And so 2005, I've been doing this for over a decade. And I can tell you that leaning into this question takes me to a place where I start to see how theologian Rebecca Parker calls it, I was educated into ignorance. So let me give you a data point for that. Just look at what is happening around so-called critical race theory right now. When teachers dare to teach American history from a non-white centered viewpoint, the status quo mobilizes to shut that down. Now, back to 2005 in General Assembly and my dissonance, I wanted to know what this woman was about. So I followed Annette throughout this whole General Assembly. And through her, I met so many people, white people, who had been involved with anti-racist work in the UUA, not where I expected it, in the UUA, since the 1960s. And what was remarkable for me was that they didn't think they needed to be in a room where Black people, Indigenous people, people of color could meet and strategize and plan. No, let them be in the room and then I'll support you. That was their orientation. And that's one of the approaches to anti-racism in the UUA, identity caucusing. Now, that cut against cultural teachings that I had. You might know them. And they say, we should be colorblind. We should all work together on this problem of racism. But what this fails to account for is that we have interracial dynamics in our culture that affect group processes. And so, as a white person, what I find is that white caucuses help with perceiving and addressing the ways that we have been educated into ignorance. It's like pulling, let me come over here. It's like pulling, sorry, Saj. Oh, it broke too. See, that learning process. It's like pulling a piece of yarn that unravels a piece of knitting. See, here we go. It unveils a piece of misinformation or lies, and you keep pulling it, and eventually it's all gone. I'll pull this out so y'all can try it yourselves. So as I live my question, I do find ways to be more receptive to people's stories, and that my story may be limited. I find ways to be more compassionate and creative, because we're facing a very complex problem in our culture, which is white supremacy culture. So I hope you take some time with this question yourself. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Peter Hindy. How about that? Doesn't stretch any further, sorry. I have been I've been at Horizon about 15 years. A few years ago, I was elected to the Endowment Committee, and I started looking for information on endowments and philanthropy. And I heard about a book that said philanthropy continues colonial domination patterns. A book called Decolonizing Wealth, and it was written by Edgar Villanueva, who is of Native American descent on his mother's side. I hadn't learned how to pronounce his name until I was preparing for this talk. Mispronouncing names, if they're not typical American names, is one sign of white privilege, and it is considered disrespectful. There are things in this book that do not resonate with me, probably at least partly due to my white privilege. I have a different perspective, and it feels like the author is overstating his case in his anger sometimes. But I consider what is said, and because as the author pointed out, when you are accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. So this book is about major charitable organizations that give away millions of dollars a year, like the R.J. Reynolds Foundation, where Villanueva worked, and the Gates Foundation. 90% of these foundations' CEOs and board members are white. Surprise. The author calls them the white experts and the white saviors in institutional form. As with banks, white men are in charge of access to money. So he points out the colonization created white privilege as Europeans accumulated wealth from around the world, claiming a God-given right to take over non-Christian lands. Now people of color who have less capital because the Europeans took it must apply for access to it and are judged for not having it. Villanueva says the colonizing virus, that's the term he uses, the colonizing virus continues to mutate and spread, and he sees colonial control in the operation of charitable foundations, of which he was a pawn. He says, to get funding, you must apply for a grant, you must ask the white man for money, you must propose something that white people want to fund, and then you must report back on what the funds accomplished in the white man's terms. So the white man continues controlling other people, colonization in one more form. His recommendations are directed at charitable foundations. He says the first thing to do is apologize for stealing, for taking the land and the cheap labor that produced all the money that's in these foundations. Listen to ideas from the aggrieved. Relate to each other as in people, not as in a savior and a victim. Use money to heal the injury, and bottom line, change the system. Our first reading said, don't search for the answers which could not be given to you now, because you wouldn't be able to live them. Live the questions now. Then perhaps someday far in the future, you will gradually live your way into the answer. Now, it seems to me like charity should be a good thing, giving money to people who need it. Villanueva's message is part of my challenge to live the question.
Over the past 7 or 8 years, I've experienced discoveries, small and large, on my journey toward wokeness, being woke, awakening, being aware. First, I learned about and became aware of unconscious bias, the negative associations I hold that I am unaware of. I've learned about and accepted my role in sustaining our white supremacy culture. I've opened my ears to hear our factual American history. All those years, I believed that everybody had access to the GI Bill and the FHA home loan. I was dismayed to learn that that was not the case. One of the pauses in my journey has been me trying to discern my role as a white person in the social justice movement. I clearly understand that essential leadership must come from the people who are affected by the issues, those who have experience up close and personal. But what is my role? What does an ally do? When do I step up? When do I step back? I was struggling with all of this in March of 2019 when I joined the others on the Faith in Texas bus to Lobby Day in Austin, where we would go in teams to try to influence legislators regarding upcoming legislation. We filed off the bus, teams began forming, and as I walked by one huddle, I heard someone say, "We need a white person." Did I hear that right? I moved nearer. One of the group looked to the others and then looked at me and said, "We need a white person on our team. Will you go with us?" Me? Why ever do you need me? We need you to get us in the door. We need you to get us in the doors. Whether they were coming from experience or fear, this Hispanic team believed they needed someone white to gain entrance to the legislators' offices. So off we went. During the next several hours, we visited multiple legislative offices and made our cases to their staffs. I would go first, requesting entry and introducing the team. They would tell their stories, sometimes in Spanish, with friends translating. Okay, so we don't have the picture, sorry. The gentleman who I will show you the picture of when you come to see me, who has lived in this area and worked and paid taxes for more than 30 years with no criminal record, was asking that the law be passed that would allow him to be able to earn a driver's license. He would then legally drive himself to work and his children to school. He described the stress on his family and himself when he does drive, risking arrest and deportation for the lack of a driver's license. As you may be aware, that law did not pass. We have work to do. It is my belief that as we continue examining ourselves with new eyes, with new awareness of how we think and where our responsibilities lie, as we offer our individual talents and skills, and yes, even the advantage of our whiteness when that applies, as we blend our efforts with others in this congregation and community, we will move toward building a beloved community filled with compassion, helping all to thrive in a just world.
I'm MC Mitter. Been in Horizon for quite a long time. We are all a product of our life experiences, and we all have our story. Looking back, I grew up not in abject poverty, but poor here in Dallas. I was a sickly child, and doctors and hospitals were, of course, out of pocket and paid on the installment plan. My dad was unskilled and had a minor physical disability and didn't make enough to support the family, so my mother also worked to make ends meet. We owned a small house. I went to DISD schools and did okay grade-wise. In a graduating class of 500 in 1961. Though neither of my parents had gone to college, they encouraged me. I graduated with a chemical engineering degree, was hired by a major chemical company, and worked for them my whole career. I have begun to realize I was a beneficiary of white privilege. My mother and dad were able to buy that first small house in a safe, working class neighborhood. If they had been black, they could not have bought that house in that neighborhood. They would have had to try to buy a house in a rundown neighborhood in South Dallas that would always have been worth less than a house in a white neighborhood. I went to segregated Dallas schools. The white schools were much better resourced than the non-white schools. So I had the opportunity for a superior education. My mother worked as a secretary, making a decent salary for a woman at that time. This meant that my parents, by scrimping, could help me pay for college. If she had been black, she would not have been able to work as a secretary, but for much less, even though she was one of the smartest women I have ever known. And perhaps they would not have been able to help me, and maybe I would not have been able to go and finish. I paid my half of the college expenses by working almost full-time at various jobs while I took classes and in the summers. The jobs I got during college were not open to people of color. Jobs open to people of color paid less, much less. I graduated with a decent GPA, not a great one, but I got hired immediately at that company, worked for them 32 years and retired with a pension. And yes, I worked hard to get through college and then get hired. And some may say, anybody could have done this if they just worked hard enough. I think it's not that simple. If I had been black, same grades in school, same chemical engineering degree, I would not have been hired by that company at that time or even for the next 10 or 20 years. Of course, the same would have been true had I been a female, white, black, or whatever, or many other marginalized groups. Now, I don't need to feel guilty. I didn't create the systems and conditions that I benefited from. And yes, we have come a long way over the last 50 years. But since I did benefit and others were deprived, then don't I have some responsibility to continue to make the systems fairer? I believe so, and I continue on the journey to understand what that means. I close with a quote from Marie Beecham. Privilege isn't the presence of perks and benefits. It's the absence of obstacles and barriers. That's a lot harder to notice. If you have a hard time recognizing your privileges, focus on what you don't have to go through. Let that fuel your empathy and action.
are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way, feeling stronger every day. We are building a new way.
We extinguish this flame, but not our commitment to welcome radically, love boldly, grow spiritually, and serve courageously. We envision a beloved community filled with compassion, helping all to thrive in a just world.
We send you out into the new week with this benediction by Reverend Tom Shade. My friends, there is a power at work in the universe. It works through human hands, but it was not made by human hands. It is creative, sustaining, and transforming power, and we can trust that power with our lives and with our ministries. It will sustain us whenever we take a stand on the side of love, whenever we take a stand for peace and justice, whenever we take a risk. Trust in that power. We are together held by that power. Go in peace.